God bless America, because this is DG Chichester, and you are listening to the Captain America Comic Book Fans Podcast.
Greetings, Cap fans, and welcome to episode 143 of the Captain America Comic Book Fans Podcast. I am your host, Rick Verbanis, and as always, I'm joined by the best gosh darn co-host out there. That is Mr. Bob Lucius. Oh, Bob. Okay, that was kind of mean. Bob's not here. If you remember from last episode, we went a little long, like 3 hours. Recording the Punisher Captain America Blood and Glory story. It's a very long story. And so we decided to break it up into 2 episodes. So last episode, 142, is part 1. If you haven't listened to that, go do that. This is part 2, where we're going to cover issues 2 and 3. So Bob's not here because I'm recording this after the fact, but I didn't want you guys to, feel left out. So I went ahead and did my introduction anyway. And just as a reminder, last episode with issue number 1, what a cliffhanger. The Punisher shot Captain America in the chest. He's lying on some government steps bleeding. We got to get to issue number 2. Enjoy the show. All right, Bob, tell me about the cover to number 2.
All right, Rick. So, on this cover, again, it's a wraparound cover on the prestige format. And we have, looks to be on a road someplace. And in the background, we see a very large 18-wheeler tractor trailer coming at him like a bat out of hell. And in the foreground, we see the Punisher and Captain America on motorcycles. And again, Punisher's in the foreground, as you pointed out earlier. And he's got Uzis in both hands, and he's firing them straight ahead as he's popping a wheelie, no less. And Cap is in the background with both hands safely on the handlebars, with both wheels touching the ground. Because, well, actually, he does have a little bit of a front wheel in the air. And then on the extreme left, we see another motorcycle, or at least the front end of it, way up in the air with a guy flying off the motorcycle. So there is some sort of pursuit going on here, and there's motorcycles involved and also a very large truck in pursuit.
Very nice. And you want to read the back, what it says?
Sure. Captain America may be dead. The living legend of World War II has succumbed to an assassin's bullet fired by that criminal nemesis known as the Punisher. Why has America's symbol been so brutally cut down? The insidious answer involves more than a crazed vigilante. It encompasses a sinister top-secret operation authorized at the highest levels, whose blood trail leads shockingly to the doorstep of the Attorney General himself. Blood and Glory is a lightning-paced thriller you must not miss.
All right. And it's the same creative team. And we cut to the opening page. It's a big splash page, and it's a man in military gear who is holding it's a dress, right? Military dress. And he is holding a folded American flag. It is in a triangle and it is only showing the 3 stars. And the title to this one is, Bob?
Eternal Vigilance.
Kill one man and you are a murderer. Kill millions and you are a conqueror. Kill all and you are a god. Quoted by Rostand. Am I saying that right?
Rostand? Yeah, Rostand, the
Rostand?
19th century French poet.
Oh, uh-huh.
I know that because I looked it up right before we met tonight.
Okay. Thanks for doing a little bit of research. Appreciate that. All right. So we cut to the opening splash page. That was like the opening splash, but the next page, and it is Captain America, who's on a gurney, and it is looking down, almost like a backwards type of thing, It's a really interesting view. Sometimes you would see something like this where the cinematographer would like to do this just to kind of, create this other look. But basically the focus is on a shot and bleeding Captain America in uniform. So the focus is on that. And I guess the whole upside down is to kind of give the reader the view of like, the whole world's been turned upside down. And along with the doctors and nurses that are on either side of the gurney that are rushing him down the hall, we see a Nicholas Fury.
Yeah. Smoking.
Yeah, with a lit cigar, no less.
Right.
Right. So then we cut to the next page, and Nick Fury is stopping everything. He's basically like, no one is going to touch Captain America until we get a file, and every single one of you, we need to make sure that you are all qualified and make sure that you are all, none of you are, none of you are bad guys. So they're like, well, the man's life is at stake, and he's like, doesn't matter. I want to get a background check on every one of these. So he tells Dum Dum Dugan to clear everybody out. So it is now just him and the Countess. What is her name, Bob?
Contras. Now you've got me.
I don't think she's with the Contras, but
you've got me. You've got me over a barrel here. It's the Allegra de Fontaine.
Yeah, exactly. Valentina Allegra de la Fontaine.
Yes.
Yes. So Nick Fury asks, what's the situation? And she's like, he's gonna live. Essentially, yes, exactly, just a flesh wound.
Just a flesh wound.
But basically, it's the chainmail saved him. But there's an angle to it that's cutting into his chest and of course his shoulder. So Cap's in his state telling Nick about the conspiracy and about the weapons and the country and all that stuff. So Nick Fury's like, tell me what I can do. And Cap says, you want to help? And he grabs him and pulls him closer. Let me die. Oh, I didn't know Steve was ready to give it up.
I know. I mean, he seemed a bit melancholy in the beginning, but it's okay.
All right. So then we cut to
Washington.
Yeah, we cut to Washington, and it's the middle of a downpour of rain, and there is the Avengers carrying a casket with an American flag draped over it. So we have on one side Iron Man, Jarvis, and Hawkeye. On the other side, we have She-Hulk, Vision, and Thor, and it's the white Vision, all white version. So we kind of know what time period this is in for the Avengers, early 90s. And basically saying that, Captain America's dead. A lot of people were pointing the finger at Nick Fury because he made all the doctors and nurses stop what they were doing to get background checks. And so Nick Fury has no comment. Then we cut to a diner. There's some arguments going on with some people who, I guess, some veterans there, and having disagreement on how the country has supported or not supported veterans. I guess really depends on what war you're from. Now, keep in mind too, Bob, at this period, World War II veterans were still around, right? There wasn't as, scarce as they are now.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So you would see guys in their 70s that are still spry, and then you would see some guys that were in, maybe our age or a little younger that were from Vietnam. And so they, and that was something that, Punisher brought up when he was on the rooftop, right? That, World War II veterans got treated so much better than Vietnam veterans when they came back. So that's been a point. But we sitting in the booth, we have a Frank Castle who is dressed. He's got a beard, mustache, so he's in disguise as he's talking to.
Well, we don't know yet. He's some sort of informant.
Yes. Punisher's War Journal, off I-94 in Michigan. The little man named Booch squeaks like the rat he is. This rodent comes with a difference. A U.S. DEA stamp of approval, stitching out from the inside corruption that hides behind the flag. He tells me what I want to hear, a justification. And what was black and white begins turning gray, no matter how high. So then we cut to the district attorney talking again about the presidential General Miguel Navatiles, and that he's a main target in their war on drugs. And then there's a manhunt out there for the vigilante Punisher for killing Captain America. And so that kind of gets us up to speed. And then the word journal continues. Guilty, at least of thinking much the same as the grunt. Believing the worst, pulling the trigger. Judge, jury, executioner. A war against crime. Eye tight against the sniper scope, blind to anything outside those crosshairs. Targeting what I fight against, never seeing what I fight for. I fought for the flag once, before it betrayed us in that jungle war, before I put a bullet through a man wearing its colors. I fought for the flag. So then we cut to, looks like a really, really nice yacht. And there we have the district attorney, we have Miss Stone, and we have the general. And they're talking about this deal that they've got, all cooked up, and how they have him in place. But they're using, it's basically a drugs for guns type of thing, right? And it's they have this particular general in place because it's, I guess, the devil, and he's cooperating with the United States, even though he's a dictator and he's a bad man. And then just for people who want to understand how this is really going, Miss Stone kind of points it out. That continues to be accomplished with street-level sales of Justice Department confiscated narcotics, profits from which are ceded to your buyers for the arms purchases which we've arranged for your defense force. Naturally, we expect you to use these weapons in furthering the cause of democracy by subjugating your neighboring countries whose policies we find less than democratic. And so they agree on that. And the general goes off and gets in a little boat full of women and go off to their own place. But then coming out from behind everything was Colonel Cayley and his crew. And so they're basically under the payroll of Miss Stone and the DEA here. And so now that she had Punisher kill Captain America, supposedly, she now is asking this team to take care of Frank Castle, right? Because he's just a loose cannon. And so they're working on it. So we cut back to the diner. The Frank and the informant are standing outside, and Frank takes off his disguise, gets on a motorcycle, and then he takes off. And he does say, all wars begin with some form of betrayal. that true, Bob?
I don't know if that's true. I don't know.
Hmm.
But it does sound like something Frank Castle would say.
Yep. So he leaves, and then so the informant goes walking, and he ends up being killed by one of Colonel Cayley's men. But it turns out this guy, the bald guy, he likes to scalp his victims, I guess, and wear their hair. It's a little gross, Bob.
Yeah, it is a little gross. Yeah.
Yeah. So then they get back to the there's a so at this point they get to the trailer of the tractor trailer, and opens up the back, and out comes three motorcycles, guys on three motorcycles, and they go chasing after the Punisher. And then the bald guy wearing the new scalp gets into the tractor trailer, and he starts driving out after them. And he's singing various songs. So then we see one of the guys who I guess was in part of the crew. He has the dead informant, and he's pulling him back into the alley, and there's a stranger, a big stranger, comes up, and he's got like a black ponytail, and he comes up and he just punches the guy, and then he takes off his jacket, and he's all bandaged up underneath, and he's because he's using his t-shirt to bandage up the wound of the informant. And it turns out he takes off the ponytail. Bob, and who is it?
Oh my God, it's Steve Rogers.
He's not dead.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Twist.
Exactly. So he orders them to basically get the medics. So Punisher's driving on the motorcycle, and inside the war journal we read, "Clout, the high up kind. That's what the rats squealed. The kind that would set up America. The kind that don't leave loose ends." And he starts getting shot at by the three motorcycles behind him. "I've been riding down their road too long, too fast. Time to put on the brakes. Maybe they got names, families, lives. Doesn't matter. I've seen past the facade to what they really are. All there'll ever be. Dead animals along the side of the interstate." So again, he puts on the brakes. The three of them go past him. He pulls out a gun and he shoots one of them. Roadkill. So one of them's down. Jim's down. And then Punisher goes chasing after him with the motorcycle. And so the two guys who are in the lead now go ahead and they throw out, what are those, Bob?
Caltrops.
I never knew the name of them.
Huh.
But can you describe them?
Yeah, they're if you've ever played jacks, with the ball and the little like.
How old do you think I am, Bob?
Anyway,
do kids nowadays even know what that is?
They don't. But basically, little metal stars that are in three dimensions, right? And so these, of course, have spikes on them, and so throw them down on the ground, and when a car rides over them, it punctures the tires, and it's a very convenient way to stop a speeding vehicle.
I never knew they were called caltrops. Anyway, so Punisher's motorcycle goes flying. He goes flying into a ditch. The two guys go over there. They pull out their guns to fire on him. But coming by very quickly on a motorcycle is Captain America, who grabs the guns out of their hand. Harley-Davidson motor roars, "Made in America." Same as the muscles that move in a blur to rip the guns from the hands, deprive them of their edge. I'll take away everything else. And then the Punisher comes up behind one, and he cracks the neck, kills one. And then the other guy's like, no way. And he starts running away. But Punisher's like, you're in denial. But, and then he basically, catches up to him, kicks him, punches him, and he yells at him, I want to know who you're working for. There's your answer, a-hole. And remember that the bald guy who was driving the tractor trailer?
With the hairpiece from the injured guy? Yeah.
Yeah, he just showed up. And he's driving down the road. And Steve comes up, grabs the Punisher as they're going. He's like, come on, both of you. But he grabs the Punisher, but the Punisher did not grab him. And so he gets nailed by the truck. So he's gone. And anyway, Punisher realizes who this is. If you're who I think you are, why aren't you in a coffin? Not for lack of trying. Old Glory think the truckers got some answers. Me, I've got my own scores to settle and debts to pay. The two of them are now working together. And they are driving towards the tractor trailer on their motorcycle playing chicken. And turns out they keep coming and they keep coming. And they ram the motorcycles into the truck and then go under the truck.
Don't try this at home, kids.
No, sir. So they're underneath holding onto the truck. And we cut to War Journal. Playing by rules in Nam got you carried home in a mummy sack. Surviving in country was a matter of hitting below the belt when the VC wasn't looking, because his attention was wasted on diversion. Eagle Scout thinks differently, acts like it's still D-Day, charging up some beach to take the enemy head on. Never understood the stand-up kind, putting themselves in the spotlight. My war stays in the shadows. A dark place, Sir Subterfuge. The black promise of sabotage. And while Punisher's underneath the truck, he cuts the brake line. And Cap comes up and opens the door, and he basically attacks him. And but the guy fights back, and he knows it's Captain America, so he knows that he's been injured, so he goes for the injure and punches where the hole was in his chest. And then he pulls out a knife and starts coming at him. But the Punisher comes up through the other door on the driver's side, and he grabs the knife from the man, pulls it out, and he sticks it into his driving foot, making the gas pedal go straight down, and then takes Cap and jumps out of the truck. But with no brake and his other foot stuck on the gas pedal, it's just a matter of time before the truck goes off the curve and blows up. And at this point, Steve calls out Frank. One thing straight up front. I don't like you, and I despise what it is you do. Your methods make me sick. You're not winning any popularity contests with me either. But your reputation makes it clear I wouldn't have been a target without one pretty strong why. I think part of that is you're much of a pawn in this as anybody. And playing corpse gives you the low profile to get under whatever this is, that it? Here's your reasons. Nam should have taught me better than to trust intelligence. Somebody inside justice, pulling drugs off the street to put him back at a profit. Somebody said you were doing the selling. I bought it. Sorry about that. And he starts walking off. Steve comes up behind him, puts his hand on his shoulder. Wait. Wait, what? This where you beat the crap out of me for what I did to you? What? Now I know better, all right? Not that there aren't guys in it who wear flags. Gray ones. DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency. They're somehow into smuggling booby-trap weapons down south to Medusa. Like I should care. It's all connected, and we're in it together. Don't give me that bull. I pulled your backside out of that rig. We're even. That's it. And what about this? And he points to the hole in his chest where he got shot. And it's still bleeding. I guess because he probably ruptured it while all the action. But Punisher, he's like, I'll show you my chest. And he rips open his shirt and sees all the scars. Comes with the territory. You think you're special or something? You get some kind of medal or something? Me and my buddies got these in battle. You sat out, pal. Kaesung, Da Nang, Tet. I said it wrong.
It's just spelled ridiculously.
Okay. How's it supposed to be spelled?
Well, it's Khesanh.
How do you pronounce it?
Kaesung.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, at least I said it right.
I know. No, it's not on you. I'm just like a little research, man.
Okay. I'm talking about what's inside. I thought you were supposed to be some kind of soldier with a war to fight. What, you only pick the ones you know you can win and run from the rest? This is here and now, and it's your face whether you want it or not. All right, G.I. Joe. You want me? You got me. Where do I sign up, huh? Where do I enlist? I'm not looking for a king of the mountain castle. Just for someone to care that some of the good this country still stands for is being raped. Sometimes wars aren't right, but the reasons always are. You didn't get all those decorations in just one tour. I just thought, never mind. And he walks away. Now it's this time for Frank to come up to Steve and put his hand on his shoulder. 6 tours, G.I. Joe. And still counting. So then we cut to Medusa, and we have the district attorney there, sitting there with the general, and there's a big party going on the beach on the side of the jungle, and it gets a little ugly. Now all of a sudden, they decide to pull out a human sacrifice, and the DA is like, I can't be involved with this, but essentially they went ahead and did it anyway. So at this point, they're just he's in it deeper and deeper, the DA, as we get a little bit further into the business with the devil, and he says, think of the drugs you've been selling back into the streets. How many have you sacrificed in that way? This is just more personal. So then we cut to the warehouse where the military guys are. Is that a technical term, Bob? Military guys?
Yeah, the military guys, right?
Yeah,
with their military stuff.
Yeah. And so now we have a disguised Steve Rogers and disguised Frank Castle going in, looking to buy weapons from the source that they were before. So they're trying to dig a little deep. My real interest lies in establishing exactly who it is feeding the pipeline of weapons to Medusa. The Punisher's interest is in proving me wrong on this avenue of the investigation. And so the lady there, not sure what her name is. Oh, Miss White. And they're wanting to make purchases, and she says, well, this is an impressive list of ordnance. You certainly know what you want. Unfortunately, I can't give you any satisfaction, weapon-wise anyway. I've been cleared out by a recent buyer. We will be restocked with these items for several weeks. Of course, we could find something to do in the meantime, well. And so she's basically coming on to him, and Steve's kind of a little embarrassed. And the Punisher, Frank Castle in disguise, who's kind of acting as his bodyguard, he makes a little joke, Bob. It's funny. What? Is she a necrophiliac? Because he's really old.
Yeah.
And Cap just whispers back, you're just jealous. Perhaps you could give me the buyer's name. I'd like to attempt to negotiate with the current property holder. I'm sorry, we don't disclose clients. Company policy. Then again, maybe you and I could work something out. Some other time. Thank you very much for... And he bends over. Is something wrong, Mr. Stevens? War injury. Oh, really? Which one? They're all the same, aren't they? The Punisher's way involves laying down a suppressing fire with flamethrowers and blowing the fence with plastique. Not in this man's army. We move in, belladonna drops in our eyes to dilate the pupils for night vision. Is that a real thing, Bob?
I haven't heard of it. No.
Oh. Reflective plastic around my shield. A similar setup for Castle gets us this close. A barrier keeping us off thermal, the mirror reflecting back the surrounding foliage to the cameras. I let the vigilante have his fun where the god dogs are concerned. And what's he do? Throws a bag over the fence, Bob. What's in the bag?
I'm not happy about this, Rick, but it appears to be a sack of cats.
Oh.
A cat sack.
And then the dogs go chasing the cats. He reroutes the alarm before cutting through the wire. It does nothing to silence the sirens in my head, surrounding a strong warning against working with this man in any capacity. But the circumstances seem to dictate otherwise. There's a dichotomy between us, more than the wars that made us what we are. A divergence of ideals. I look toward what achieves the necessary end. The Punisher is an end all to himself. We agreed not to hurt anyone, Castle. We've obviously got different ideas of that word. And so he chokes a guard until he goes unconscious. So Steve got into a computer and he found out the confirmation of Navatilis as the original buyer instead of the Defense Department. And that the United States of America is purposely selling sabotage weapons to another nation. And Punisher tells him that the DIA goons are onto both the weapons and drugs, and both lead to Medusa and Navalitas. Time to pay the general a visit. And Cap says, and make the fascists show us who sold out democracy. So then we cut back to that lady that was, coming on to Steve, and she's still behind the desk. And we have Miss Stone show up, and she has a couple of people from, the crew. Looks like Colonel Cayley and what's his name? Everett or something?
Theopolis, was it? No, he's dead now. I don't know who this guy is.
Oh, okay. And then so she comes up and says, the Attorney General's office would like your cooperation in answering a few questions. I'm sorry, we don't disclose client company policy. There's no need to hide anything, Miss White. We're from the government. And basically, the woman got tortured to get the information. So they found out from torturing her, from the description, they could make out the fact that it was Steve and Frank. And so now, and she's dead, by the way. They decide to talk with Mullock, which was the district attorney. And now Mullock knows that Cap and Frank know about them. And so they are realizing that maybe they're on their way. So they do. They kind of come up. They come over a river. Frank sinks the boat. And then we get to a little scene here where Punisher shows some of the items he's brought. And Cap asks him, What's that you're packing? A few essentials. A war. How do you pronounce it? Quat?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, quite.
War
Quite.
quite.
Yeah.
Congolese hungamunga. You want to describe the hungamunga?
It's hard to describe a hungamunga, Rick, but it is some sort of a bladed weapon with a curved blade and some curved hooks. It's a hungamunga, Rick. If you don't know what it is, those who know hungamungas don't talk about hungamungas.
I tell you what, I hope I never see a hungamunga. A Sanda throwing knife for hunting human meat. Quite the arsenal. That's right. What? Let me guess. You don't believe in weapons? Not that. I just don't need them. And that did not make Frank happy. Smart lip, star-spangled son of a... So they get to a holdout, and they're basically in the middle of a village, and they're waiting in there, and they found the weapons, and they're going through the weapons, and Cap's inspecting them, and he sees it's the same metallurgical flaws. And so they're potential bombs, right? Because they're going to blow up in people's hands. And so they're just kind of talking. There's some really good up close art here. I like by Klaus Jensen. Again, a lot of Miller-esque to it. And essentially, Cap comes across and he finds a bomb that is only have seconds left. So it was kind of a booby trap, right? They're going to destroy evidence, and Cap and Frank were there at the wrong time. So what does Cap do? He throws his shield to Frank, and he says, the result is going to be the same. The shield will protect him. Please, a soldier needs his allies. And there's a huge explosion pop. So Cap with no shield gets caught in the blast, whereas Frank has the shield to protect him. Cap gets thrown down. Frank gets thrown further. And then Cap's found by the enemy. Then we cut to the last page, and the general gets a phone call and says, we have the rabid dog. And the general says on the phone, and what do you do with a rabid dog? And then they put a gun to Cap's head. There you go. End of issue 2.
All right. A lot going on, man.
Yeah, lots going on.
It's a very complex story.
It really is. It is indeed. So issue 3 has a release date of October 1992, cover date of December 1992. And this one has a new colorist on there. We have Judy Johnson and Cheryl Van Vollenbroer, letterer John Workman. So looks but the writers and the penciler / inker is still, and the editor Ralph Macchio is still the same. Wax on. All right, Bob, what's on the cover?
All right. Well, again, we have the Punisher and Captain America, and Cap is in the background, and he's got his, it's kind of his crouching fighting style with his shield on his right hand, and his left hand, he's ready to throw a punch. It's cocked and ready to go. And then in the foreground, we've got Frank Castle. It looks like he's got, a very heavy caliber machine gun. And he's firing up into the air. And in the background, we see, it looks like a trio of AH-1 Cobra helicopter gunships. So, there's a lot of bullets flying around in this panel, this cover. But again, a lot of action, wraparound cover.
And do you want to read what's on the back?
Sure. In a steamy South American jungle, the living legend, Captain America, and vigilante Frank Castle, the Punisher, battle overwhelming odds to secure blessings of liberty and self-determination for the tiny nation of Venezuela. But in Washington, figures of frightening political power have another agenda. There, the two heroic figures are an impediment, expendable in the grand and sinister scheme of sabotage and subterfuge, which threatens to consume both nations. Blood and Glory reaches its shattering climax in these pages as all sides clash for the ultimate prize, and the U.S. may never be the same.
Dun, dun, dun. So we cut to the opening splash page again, something that a little different from the rest of the story, but it kind of sets the tone. Bob, what's the title of this one?
Establish the blessings of liberty.
And the quote underneath is, "Liberty means responsibility. That's why most men dread it." George Bernard Shaw. And it's an image. What's the image, Bob?
Well, in the background, it's an image of the Iwo Jima monument in Washington, D.C., and in the foreground, it's the image of the three soldiers from the Vietnam Veterans Memorial.
Very nice. All right, we're gonna speed up this, but because we are running a little long. It is a long story, but in we have a group of soldiers that are looking for the body of Frank Castle, and they're cutting their way through the jungle. They do come across. They finally see Cap's shield. Actually, they were actually looking for the shield. Now I think about it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they come across, they see the shield laying there in the jungle, and but the shield starts to move. And so they all get really worried, and then they realize that the Punisher must have him. And so they're freaking out, and they're going, back to back. And there's like 5 of them, I think. And we cut to the next page, and it's a really nice big splash page of the Punisher holding Cap's shield. That's something you just don't see, Bob.
You surely don't.
And he's got that throwing knife, and he does he has like an underthrow, and he throws it, and it goes right where it needs to go, and takes out a guy in the shoulder, which makes him kind of like hits a nerve. So he's just firing his weapon, because he can't help it. And he's spasming and firing his weapon and all around to his compatriots here. And they're all ducking and going in different directions in the jungle. And the Punisher comes up behind him and basically, kills him, and then uses him and the shield as protecting himself from being fired on, as he's taking that guy's weapon and firing on them. He then uses the blood and wipes it onto the shield. Any thoughts before I move on?
No, this is intriguing.
So then we cut to inside one of these cabins, and it's Captain America, and he's trussed up from the rafters with a large metal chain that is wrapped around his wrists, tied above his head, and then he's got more tied around his feet as well. It's around his boots. And so he is there just as he was at the end of last issue, and they are about to execute him. But we see Captain America's shield coming up to like the window, and it's just tapping the window. But Steve, in his inner monologue, says, "I was 6 when I made my first radio set out of a Quaker Oats box wrapped in wire. 7 by the time I learned Morse code by heart." And what's the tapping Morse code, Bob?
What, incoming? Yeah.
Incoming, yes. So it's a little message that Cap understands. So at this point, and they're looking to execute him. And so Steve says, "You blow that hole in my face, you blow away any value my death might have." "You think that words will save you, American? General Natilis needs a recognizable corpse, see?" And then they go ahead and they put him in a chair. They lower the chain just enough so that he sits in a chair. And then they get their rifle butt and push his head back, right? And then they're going to take a very, very heavy rice bag and put it over top of his head so that it snaps his neck and kills him, but doesn't damage his face because the rice would, go around his features. That sounds like a bad way to die.
It does actually. Yeah. Yeah. In the
Yeah.
grand scheme of things.
So just then, the shield comes flying in onto the ground, and they think it's from their compatriots who went out and found the shield. So they think they're just messing around. At this point, with the distraction, Cap bites into the bag of rice, which goes everywhere. And then what they don't realize is on the bottom of that shield is a bomb. And it's a time bomb, and it goes off. And the explosion kills one guy and sends the shield flying. Cap uses his time to swing and let the shield cut his chain. He then breaks free. The shield ricochets. He catches it so it doesn't kill someone, instead punches him out. Punisher comes in through the door and says, "Nice catch. Looks like you took good care of it. Least I could do, save my backside when the coke house went up. You're not admitting defense can be as useful as offense, are you?" "I wouldn't go that far." "What?" And Cap grabs him and pulls him and throws him because there's they just opened up firing onto the place, and Cap caught it just in time. But there's a ton of guys out there, and they're emptying every clip into this place. So Cap and Punisher are hiding, trying to get low to avoid the fire. But at this point, Cap, being Cap, yells out to them and says, "Hold your fire. Your rifle's there." And they do. They all start to blow up because they're, defective. So he tried saving them. He put himself at risk. And he tried saving them. And at this point, Steve realizes that even the general wouldn't do this to his own, and says, "Whoever's really behind this is stateside, wrapping himself in the flag." And at that point, Frank says to him, or Frank whispers to himself, "People in glass houses," because he's wrapped in a flag. So they grab the radio from the truck, and then they go back into the jungle, and it gets dark, and then we see a new character coming out from the jungle where they left. Bob, do you want to describe this guy?
He's a really odd looking dude, Rick, right? I mean, he's a tall guy, thin guy. He's wearing a long overcoat, black pants, blue shirt, long black tie. He's got a big floppy hat on.
Yeah.
But he's green, right?
Yes,
and he's only got one eye.
He's got one big eye.
One big eye, I guess, right? And he's got these long protrusions, look like spikes coming out of each side of his head.
Yeah. So this is, believe it or not, his name is Shrek. And he's also known as Terror. And so this came from, there was a line of comics called Epic that Marvel had. That was kind of like their mature line before they went into something Max.
Yeah.
In Chichester, Dan Chichester, he was an editor of the Epic line, and he wrote several of them. And in this one series, it was called, I forget now. St. George. It only ran for 8 issues, and it came out in 1988 and 1989. He was the writer, and Klaus Janson was the artist. The two of them worked together on that series. They both created this character called Shrek, and it was a terror. And real quickly, a little bit about this character. He at some point in the distant past, a tribe of early humans hunted and fought a demon that had been preying upon them. The demon resembled a green bear with a series of long, thin spikes protruding from its face and along its spine. The man who killed the bear was cursed by Victory to assume the demon's form. His skin took on its green, decaying form, and the spikes from its face appeared on his. He gained the beast's ability to merge the limb of others with his own body, but was shunned by the tribe he had helped to protect. Over the years, he adopted names that reflected people's reaction to him, and by the Dark Ages, he had adopted the Germanic Shrek as his name. Now, his power is a few things. So again, the limb replacement. He has the ability to replace lost body parts with limbs and organs taken from others. He also inherits their knowledge. So upon grafting the new pieces to his body, Terror becomes immediately aware of his previous owner's last memories and strongest emotions. In some cases, this is a liability. So in addition to memories, Terror gains the skills and abilities of the donor. So that's his power, and that is where we come into the story now. So he comes walking up on one of the downed soldiers, and he pulls an eye out of his head, and he sticks it in his own head, and that allows him to see what that soldier had seen. So now we cut to news thing, and there's the DA, and he has a recording of the general saying, "We have a rabid dog, and what do you do with a rabid dog?" And he's now saying, with those words, General Navatilis implicates himself in our beloved Captain America's assassination. The time has come to end the moral rot this dictator is spreading across the hemisphere. Multiple federal indictments have been handed down, and my office is recommending to the president extradition through military interdiction. And so he's trying to coerce an invasion of this country, but the president has not decided to go forward with that, and Congress has decided not to go forward with that. Because he was hoping to have a regime in there where he pulled the strings. And it didn't work out that way. And so he's mad, it's ruined. He's telling this to Miss Stone. She's arguing with him. Yeah. And so we still have Colonel Casey and Lieutenant Malov there. And they are trying to get the resources by any means necessary. So they're in Medusa. The rest of the team is in Medusa and they're investigating their own assault on Medusa with U.S. firepower that forces the administration to either admitting to rogue elements or committing to a full-scale invasion. So that is what they're trying to still accomplish. So the general was the one who hired the Shrek Terror guy to see what's going on. So he's explaining that what the soldier had seen, and that the vigilantes are alive and the troops are dead. And so the general's trying to figure out what to do next. So he paid him, and but Shrek is trying to get more out of him, and the general doesn't like that, so he brings in his goons to basically kill Shrek, but he goes and breaks a bottle, and he goes and kills them, and uses their guns against them, and basically takes his leave and says killing the general would be pointless because there may be a profit in his death later. And then he jumps out. So now the general puts everything on maximum alert, and we have Captain America now in his full uniform and the Punisher there, and they are planning their attack. And then we cut to some flashback scenes, which is interesting for the end of the story to have flashback scenes. What do you think about that, Bob?
About the use of the flashback scenes here?
Yeah.
Well, I think, I don't know. I think, it seems to me at this point in the story, we've talked about this maybe once or twice before, that there are these periods in Cap's life where he's like shocked to the core at what his government is capable of. And this is one of those times, right? And so I think it's natural for him to be reflective upon how he came to be.
Yeah. So he kind of goes through that. And at the same time, we have Punisher kind of going back and taking a look at what happened to his family, and which caused him to act, in this way as well. And I do like this part where Cap says, one defeat after another began to make it seem we were doomed to lose. The country needed a victory. America needed a symbol. I always thought it was an honor just to serve my country. And then he tells Frank, we've got to be the ones to stop the U.S. from being dragged into a war someone's trying to engineer for their own personal gain. A lot of innocents are going to get killed. And that kind of snaps, Frank's memory of looking at, not only what happened with his family, but also when he was in Vietnam, and the similarities there, and how innocents were killed, and, drove him to the man that he's become today. Just what is it that made you enlist in your private war castle? I know what I'm fighting for. Do you? Innocents suffer, and the guilty must be punished. My battlefield symbols aren't red, white, and blue. They're blood red and personal. I always thought it was an honor just to serve them, too. Here's a little funny scene here. So he puts a headband on, which is a very early 90s thing to do. And then he gets out some straps, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Let me pre-tourniquet against any wounds. Moro tribesmen also bind their testicles. Self-inflicted pain immunizes them from anything their enemies might inflict. And Cap's like, I'll pass.
Won't we all?
Yeah. So then we cut to these 3 helicopters that are flying out over here. And they're just going and taking out civilians. They're just going into towns and firing on civilians. Why do you think that is, Bob?
Well, I mean, obviously they're trying to cause a disturbance, right? The more eyes on them, the better it is for their plan.
Yep. So the general is trying to rally the troops to fight back. And then Steve says to Frank, now is the time, and it's a quote, now is the time for all good men to come to the aid of their country. Who's that quote from, Bob?
Oh my God. Was it, I can't remember. Was it Nathan Green, or I don't know.
Oh, I thought you would know.
Yeah, I can't remember. At one point I did, but.
What does that mean?
It means I'm losing my memory. Oh,
no. Yeah. As the tough guys say, we get to kick serious butt. So now, Bob, we cut to this double page splash, which basically is the cover, right? I've
Yeah.
never seen this happen before where the cover is the internal page, unless it was like a reprint or something like that, like a second printing. But yeah, it's the page, double page splash of Punisher firing on the helicopters and the helicopters firing down. It's just the coloring is different, but other than that, it's the same artwork, I'm pretty sure. Punisher is firing on the various helicopters, whereas Steve is trying to go up and get on the helicopter and manually take them down. So there's a nice little, battle scene of Cap hanging on a helicopter in the sky, swinging his shield. You're laughing, Bob. What's funny?
Oh yeah, well, Rick, I had to look up that phrase. Now is the time for all good men to come to the aid of their country. I wanted to know what famous politician, military leader had said that. Revolutionary had said that. It turns out it was a phrase first proposed by a typing drill as a typing drill by instructor Charles Weller in a book called The History of the Early Typewriter. So this was back in 1918. So the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. Same idea. These were sayings that were developed to teach people how to type.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. So a couple of the helicopters go into each other. They blow up. And here's a cool panel, Bob, where I like, me, I'm a sucker for multiple caps in one panel.
I knew you were gonna like that one.
I do. I really do. But then he goes up against Colonel Casey, who's a little rough for wear right now. And the two of them are fighting. And then we have the general going to, looks like a church, trying to bang on the gates to get in because he's trying to seek refuge. But two of Kaylee's men come up behind him and basically say, look, you know how it works, General. We put in candidates and we take them out. It's that simple. And they basically, kill the general. But Colonel Cayley is, I don't know, he's got the better of Cap right now. He's got his face into the ground and he keeps slamming it to the ground. But Cap's yelling, that he's a traitor to the country. And eventually he elbows Cayley and he chucks him off of him. And cut back to the two brothers, I guess Kane and Kane, who have killed the general and put him up on the fence, right? Then they come up against the Punisher. He fights them and he kills them. Is that safe to say?
I think that's a safe description. Yeah.
Yep. And then Cap defeats Colonel Cayley and he rips off the American flag off of the uniform and says, "Coward, you got no right to wear this." We get to that and Steve and Frank come up on the general and they see that he's dead and it's too late. But Frank says, "And dead men tell no tales." And then we have Shrek there, who's standing there watching the whole thing. And he's lighting a cigar. And he says, "Don't be so sure. Consider me a deus ex machina, if you will. A businessman offering you answers to your questions through the good auspices of the dear departed's bodily remains." And Frank's like, "What kind of con artist grave robbing crap? Don't do us any favors." He says, "I don't do favors. I accumulate debts. The night is quite moist. The general's already starting to decay. What do you say, gentlemen? Do we have a deal?" "You can't expect us to buy into this BS. Give the devil his due. Let's hear what he's got to say." And so we then cut to a flight taking off. And who is it, Bob? It's the district of attorney and Miss
Chief of
Stone.
Staff, Stoney. Yeah.
Yeah. And they are leaving the country, but Cap's shield comes in, takes out the landing gear, and the plane goes down. And Miss Stone, she jumps out, says, "Every woman for herself." But at this point, we see a crazed looking Captain America, and his voice, the word balloons coming out of Steve's mouth is they're all kind of like wavy, right? So it's kind of weird. And he says, as the nation's primary law official, it's been your responsibility to hold those laws, Mr. Attorney General. You've been delinquent in those duties, sir, and it's high time you face justice. And so he, is now after the DA. Then as she's running away, she comes up against the Punisher. And then she pulls the whole, "Castle, Frank, thank God. They were going to, I was only a tool. They were using me too. You know that, don't you? And he shoots her, kills her, and says, "I understand." And then we cut back to Cap, who's now beating the heck out of the DA. And he's, yelling, "Arrogant, greedy, self-serving, willing to sacrifice so many for petty profit, built on the bones of innocent kids dying in the street, turning America into an exporter of death instead of ideals." And Punisher comes up and was watching all this, and Cap's looks like he's about to kill him. Something clicks inside, and I can feel the rage beginning to dissipate. I know I won't. I can't sink to that level. Moloch doesn't know that I won't, and neither does the Punisher. "Lower the shield, man. Just walk away, or you can never go back. It's lonely as hell once you get here. There's nothing but that cold satisfaction of punishment. Everywhere I've gone into, I've watched the symbol behind them all fail in the heat of battle. There aren't that many things left to believe in. Don't take away one more." Why not spare some of that faith for yourself, Castle? And then the DA reaches for a gun. And he's about to pull it on Steve, and from behind, "It's too late for me." And Punisher pulls out the gun, and he shoots the general in the kneecap. And it's not lost on Steve that the bullet tears apart the Attorney General's kneecap, fired by a man who only ever shoots to kill. Inside the plane, the stunned silence between us is betrayed only by a traitor's sobs. So we cut to this, Arlington Cemetery, and it's called Boots In, Toe to Heel, measuring where the flag is placed on another of Arlington's graves. Row after row, decorated to honor men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice. Maybe one day I'll lie beside them, one among equals. The rhythm of the rain provides a counterpoint to the old guardsman's measured steps. 21 each way, 21 seconds pausing each end. A silent 21-gun salute for the nameless fighting man within the tomb. And then we see Steve and Frank in trench coats in their civilian identities. And Steve says to Frank, "I've asked the Justice Department to look the other way when it comes to your murdering me. They've got more than enough to handle indicting Moloch. And it's not like they're lacking in other things to charge me with, And then Frank reaches into his pocket and he pulls out a medal. "Got something I want you to have. You should have been over there. I'm not saying that to condemn. It's just, we needed good men at our backs, Captain." Congress designated the medal special, the Vietnam Combat Infantry Badge. A soldier needs his allies. And he walks off. Specific for the grunt in the field who served in that war. And then he looks down at it, and then he looks at Frank and says, "Captain Castle." Called him Captain Castle. Steve gives him a salute. Frank turns, looks, and he salutes back. In that silent moment, there are no superheroes, no sanctioned patriot and hunted vigilante. We are only soldiers, fighting the same fight for the country we both hold so dear. Each of us but one among equals. And then they stop the salute and turn and walk their separate ways. All right, Bob, that was a long story.
That was a long story, Rick, and complicated too.
It was.
It
was.
There's
All
a lot
right.
going on in that story.
Any initial thoughts?
Well, it is very 1990s. There is no doubt that it is. It. I mean, if you knew the history of that era, then this would absolutely make sense as something that people who picked this up at the newsstand would connect with it in a way that maybe, I don't know, maybe folks who picked it up now, but a lot of it is really contextual, right? Manuel Noriega, the dictator of Panama that we propped up and then took down in 89, the Iran-Contra affair and all that. And so this stuff, isn't all fiction, right? It's not all fantasy. It did reflect reality at the time.
That's true. Yeah, it was right out of the pages for sure. And we'll have to talk about that with Dan when he's on the show next week.
Yeah.
All right, Bob, I believe I go first in favorite panel.
All right.
I know you think I'm going to go with the multiple Captain America in one. And I was toying with it, but I'm going to go with issue 2.
Okay.
And I'm going to go with page 43. So if you're on Marvel Unlimited, that would be page 45. If you're on the regular comic, that would be page 43. And I'm going to go with panel 6. And that's when he says to the Punisher, quite an arsenal. And let me guess, you don't believe in weapons. And Cap says, not that. I just don't need them.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And it was just putting Punisher in his place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go with that one.
All right. That's a good one.
How about you?
Well, I don't have it open in front of me. But it was same issue. And it was when Cap and Frank crashed their motorcycles into the 18-wheeler. And so you can, it's you've got the
a double page splash.
Yeah, it was awesome, right? And they're falling off the bikes. The bikes are being smashed to pieces. They're falling backwards, and it's right before they grasp onto the undercarriage of the truck. But it's a really, you could feel the motion in that panel, and there's a lot of detail. And the lighting is really something special on that. So I'm going to go with that one.
Okay, I like that.
All right.
What about T-shirt worthy, Bob? What are you putting on a T-shirt here?
This is really unorthodox, and it doesn't even have Cap in it, but I like it, and I like that original splash page from issue 1, the "We the People," with the quote by Will Rogers. I like that. I know it's kind of funky, but I do like the photo montage of the Capitol building in the background of the illustration of the inner city, and I like the quote and the red tinge of everything. So I'm going with that.
You're putting that on a T-shirt, are you?
I am. I'm putting it on a damn T-shirt. Right?
Damn.
What about yourself?
I'm gonna go with the issue 3. And I'm going to go with page 24. I don't know. I was thinking of going, which is the flashback scene to World War II. And the half-page splash, because I liked it said, America needed a symbol. I always thought it was an honor just to serve my country. I think that's a cool thing to put on a T-shirt.
Yeah. Put it on a T-shirt.
Yeah.
What about your time capsule?
My time capsule is going to be issue 1, page 20. And that is going to be panel 4, I think it is. It's the one where the doctor was reaching into the briefcase and had that very, very large cell phone with the cord.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that totally was 1990 right there. So that's going in my time capsule.
I remember being issued one of those phones when I was in the Marine Corps out on
Oh,
some
really?
exercise. They said, "Oh, take a phone," and I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Oh, these are our new cell phones that we have." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, that sounds good. I'll take it." And so I don't think I ever used it, but I had to carry that damn thing around for quite a while. So for my time capsule, I think it was the first issue. I'm trying to find it. It might have been issue 2, but it's the one where they first introduced the general out talking to
Mhm.
the people, and there was a report on current affairs. The young
Yeah.
blonde reporter, and it got me thinking about. Do you remember that show, A Current Affair?
I do.
Yeah, it came out in 1986, and it went through till I don't know, like mid, 1990s, late 1990s. But
Mhm.
Maury Povich
Oh,
was the original
gosh.
host. Remember
Yeah, he
Maury? Yeah,
was.
he just passed away, right?
Did he?
Did he just pass away? No, that was Jerry Springer that just passed away. Maury Povich was the original host, and so it got me thinking about A Current Affair, and I'm sure that's why the Chichester used Current Affairs as the title of that news show.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
got me thinking about that.
All right. That's a good one. That's a good one to put in the time capsule. All right, Bob. We got to get this going. This is it's been an extra long episode. I might even just split this up into 2. I don't know.
Yeah, it is a long episode.
It's going to take me a long time to edit it, but it was a good story, and I wanted to make sure that we captured this before we talk to Dan. So we might, I don't know, maybe I'll break it up, maybe I won't. We'll see how long in the editing process it takes, but
definitely worth doing. I got to be honest with you, I had never read this before. I think I might have started once years ago, and I just never got through it. And so this was an opportunity for me to read it a couple times, and so I'm glad I did. Right?
yeah. Yeah, it was an interesting story, and I'm looking forward to next episode, talking with Dan about this and some of his other work too.
Yeah.
All right, Bob, as always, fun wrapping cap with you.
Can't wait till next week.
All right. For Bob Lucius, I'm Rick Verbanis, and you have been listening to another episode of the Captain America Comic Book Fans Podcast.